you might think I'm batshit nuts. And you know what? That's fair. That is completely fair. You can think I'm as damn crazy as you like. Sonic Frontiers and Sonic 3D Blast are the same fucking game. Hello everyone, my name is RSX, and guys, welcome to Straight Talk. The time I'm about to take about 10 minutes or so to talk about anything I want, completely unscripted, completely random, and bullshittery. That's what this is. With that being said, I can talk about whatever I want. It's my show. And today I'm going to prove to you and everyone that this game is literally the classic Sonic version of Sonic Frontiers. You cannot deny it. Now let's give a bit of background context real quick. Sonic Frontiers is the newest Sonic game to release. It was the most anticipated one that had one of the biggest changes to the entire franchise, the open zone. Now, the game has come out to about 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 reviews. Everyone's pretty much in love with it. I'm in love with it. It is a great game. Now, let's jump backwards in time. Sonic 3D Blast released in 1996 on the Sega Genesis. The whole point of the game effectively was to see what a 3D Sonic game would look like on Sega Genesis hardware, very much similar to Star Fox on the SNES. Now, this game has had a bit of a weird history, and the general consensus in the fan base is that it's a non-offensive meh game. No one really loves it, no one necessarily hates it, but everyone pretty much ignores it. However, with that being said, 3D Blast is still home to many of its own things. For example, it is home to the very first iteration of the homing attack, which is also known as the Gold Shield. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to break down for you in this video the main points of gameplay of Sonic Frontiers and then the main points of gameplay of 3D Blast. I will state my case, showcase both, and prove once and for all that this fucking game is classic Sonic Frontiers. Alright, Sonic Frontiers, let's talk about it. It's an open zone. You're on a massive island, and there are springs and shit everywhere. The objective is simple. You go out, you get fucking memories, you get rings, you fight bosses, badniks, or I guess random robots in this case, and you inevitably get all the Chaos Emeralds to take on a Titan. So once you do all this stuff in this area and you collect all these collectibles and learn more about the story, you inevitably get all the Chaos Emeralds, and then you fight the big bad Titan in an arena style boss fight as Super Sonic. Once that is done and you beat it, you then move on to the next island, and then this rinses and repeats all the way up until Island 5, where then inevitably you go fight the final boss, and that is all. Now let's rewind the clock back to Sonic 3D Blast for a second here. Sonic 3D Blast's main point of gameplay is this. Unlike traditional stages like seen in Sonic 1, 2, and 3, this game features effectively an open-like zone with an isometric view. So instead of your traditional left and right platforming, you're in a pseudo 3D space with a pseudo pre-rendered 3D Sonic. Your objective is simple. In this massive 3D-like space, you are to run around this entire stage beating up badniks and collecting flickies. The more flickies you collect, the more you can access to the big stage. Each of these stages has a Chaos Emerald to collect. The only way to get these Chaos Emeralds is simple. You have to go find one of the characters inside the stage and give them a set amount of rings, which you have to collect by going through the level. The levels are littered with boost pads, springs, and more. There is a multi-end goal post for sure in classic Sonic fashion, but overall, it is effectively, quote-unquote, an open zone-like game. The main objective is to collect all these collectibles to progress further in. Now, yes, this stage is broken up into acts. So you have Act 1, you have a zone, and you have Act 1 and Act 2. Not too dissimilar to Sonic Frontiers' islands that are also broken up via story progression. Now, that being said, once you do collect your flickies and you do progress forward in set stages, you inevitably will find yourself in an arena-style boss fight against Eggman. Now, are these the most grand bosses? No, they are not. Not by a long shot. But still, it is an arena-style boss fight. Once they are beaten, you then move on to the next portion of the major island, which then takes you to Rusty Ruin Zone, and everything repeats once again. So, both games have open zones. Both games have spring pads, boost pads, everything littered throughout their worlds. Both feature enemies to fight, as well as arena-style boss fights. Both feature collectibles to be gained in order to progress further into the story, and both feature Chaos Emeralds as the main collectible that can only be gained through character interactions. And I don't know about you, but it's looking a whole lot more like these games are one and the same. Now, that being said, that pretty much states my case right there. I mean, how else can you disprove that? Right there. Now, am I saying the games are completely identical? No. We're comparing a game from 1996 to 2022. Obviously, there's some major differences, like graphics, controls, what it was released on, the initial, idea of what the game was meant to really be. But the fundamentals are absolutely there, and I am absolutely convinced that they pulled inspiration from 3D Blast. The term open zone, they specifically stated, because it's not an open world where the entire game is featured in the world itself. It's an open zone. And you want to know what's in 3D Blast? Open fucking zones on a far smaller degree, because obviously it is. It's on the Sega Genesis, so sue me. Now, sure, yeah, Sonic 3D Blast might not be as grand as Frontiers, and yeah, there's still a few things missing, like Super Sonic, except he's not. You see, this game might be the original Sonic 3D Blast, but luckily, one of the main developers of 3D Blast went back and redid the game, creating Sonic 3D Blast, the Director's Cut, which adds, our golden boy, Super fucking Sonic. Not only that, Sonic 3D Blast has a better build-up and ending payoff than Frontiers. You can eat my shorts. You cannot convince me otherwise. It does. The fucking supreme boss fight in Frontiers is pretty much ass. It's so much easier than any of the other boss fights in the entire game. And then the fucking final boss is literally Galaga on steroids. That's what it is. That's what it is. But 3D Blast, it builds up, my friends. It fucking builds up. Now, I know, there are definite differences of Sonic Frontiers that I am kind of leaving out. For example, Sonic Frontiers has the cyberspace stages, which is a really big significant part of the game. Sonic Frontiers also has a very intricate combat system, well, intricate for Sonic games that is, as well as an entire skill tree and RPG upgrading system where Sonic gets stronger over time. And yeah, you could say that detracts from my argument, but I would more think of it like this. With the fact that both these games are nearly identical in their fundamentals, I'm almost positive that Sonic Frontiers could be considered as a iteration in a franchise rather than a whole new experience. And then that just brings up something interesting. The fact that 3D Blast was probably a little too far ahead of its time. Now, when I say that, I don't mean graphically. I mean, 3D Blast doesn't exactly look the most amazing thing versus what else was out at the time. But the actual gameplay style that it was, with this open zone and collecting items and stuff, while trying to follow traditional Sonic style gameplay, was something that the hardware couldn't fully realize in its fullest. Now we have a game, Sonic Frontiers, all these years later, with the hardware to back up that type of gameplay style, to do it on a far more grander scale, and everyone enjoys it. Honestly, if Sonic 3D Blast was maybe taken to be a full 3D-like experience, which I've actually seen someone on Twitter who has mentioned the possibility of remaking Sonic 3D Blast, that game might have exploded in popularity. But the point is that 3D Blast is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, the classic Sonic version of Sonic Frontiers. It was the first gameplay to really implement the style of an open zone and a far smaller scale. And if anything, Sonic Frontiers isn't just a new Sonic game, but an iteration on a style of gameplay that hasn't been seen since 3D Blast. Yeah, but that's pretty much my case. And I have proved to you once and for all, for a fact, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Sonic 3D Blast is the classic Sonic version of Sonic Frontiers. It is, you could Future Ender Brian, see that title right there? Blank it out and make it say Frontiers now. Thank you. So, just admit the fact that this game is Sonic Frontiers, and if anything, it's probably the best classic Sonic game ever developed. Hell, it's better than Frontiers. Just fucking If you were to take the formula from Sonic Frontiers and boil it down for classic Sonic, I am absolutely fucking convinced that 3D Blast would be the game you get. Now, if they did that in modern times, it would probably be something on the cusp of Sonic Utopia, honestly. That actually is the great comparison. But if you want to see further proof and hear me yap about my insanity and my very strange belief in this game, then why not hop over to the playthrough, which should release about the very next day that when this video comes out. I will add a link to that video at the end of this one once the video releases, so please look forward to that playthrough. I actually had a lot of fun. It was a very big nostalgia trip. Really quick side note, 3D Blast was actually the first game me and my dad beat together that was like Sonic related. I actually genuinely have a lot of good memories of this game, and I am pretty convinced that 3D Blast is overlooked and kind of underrated in a little ways. It is not perfect by any means. There's definitely a few things that could have been done better. But if you really like think about it, they were pretty ahead of its time Sonic-wise for 3D Blast. I feel like it was the game that came out maybe too soon for its own good, and with a little more polish, this game could have been a lot more like intense. And that is the end of this video. If you guys enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, subscribe, and comments. It was always effing amazing. Thank you for joining me for the past like 10 or so minutes yapping about how this game is like another game that released in 2022, because I'm sure that's the kind of content that you look for. And I hope you guys enjoy, or at least go and check out that playthrough that we did on Sonic 3D Blast. Or while you're waiting for that video to release, why not hop over and check out the Sonic Frontiers playthrough, because that has a lot of crazy moments and it's fucking dope as hell. Hell, we even get Hypersonic in that game, courtesy of my wizardry, also known as me downloading something off Game Banana. Without further ado, Joe6 signing out. Later. And guys, you already know it's a Sonic themed video, which means we have to spin dash out of frame. So guys, get in your chair, crouch down, point this direction, and scream as if, well, actually, scream for the realization that this game is Sonic Frontiers, but classic. And you can't deny that shit.